Welcome back to the deep dive. This is where we take your sources, cut through all the noise, and get right to the critical insights.
And today we're getting into something that sounds a bit dry, a bit architectural.
Right, but it's really not. It's about the secret engine behind so much political drama, the actual physical space of a legislature.
Specifically, the British House of Commons. We're looking at how the walls, the chairs, even where you stand to speak, shapes political behavior.
And the mission for you today is very focused. We're tackling what our sources call the awkward question.
Exactly. How do you change the whole atmosphere of debate? Shift the behavior
Yeah.
without getting bogged down in those huge arguments about money and heritage and symbolism.
All the stuff that comes with talking about a brand new building, which just derails the conversation immediately.
Right. So we're deliberately asking, what can you do right now within the existing walls?
And the context here is just so important. This isn't some immutable medieval chamber we're talking about.
Not at all. The one you see on TV was rebuilt, and rebuilt quickly after World War II. It was designed with a very specific political philosophy in mind.
A philosophy that's arguably pretty outdated now.
Hugely. The post-war architects were told to design a space that maximized adversarial politics. I mean, it was built for two sides to face off. It was a choice.
Which means it can be changed. It's not set in stone.
Exactly. It's not fixed in amber.
Yeah.
So that really sets up our central question for this deep dive.
If a massive, expensive move is off the table, what are the subtle changes, the gentle tweaks almost, that could actually recalibrate the whole system?
Nudging it away from pure combat and maybe a little more towards deliberation.
Okay, so let's start with the most famous detail, the confrontation.
Yes, the current design is a masterpiece of confrontation, isn't it?
You mean the two sword lengths?
The two sword lengths in a bit. The government and opposition benches are separated by just that much. It's a physical signal.
It's so powerful, it immediately paints the whole process as this stylized, constant battle.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then think about the simple act of speaking. An MP stands up, they turn, and they deliver their argument at the people opposite them.
I can see the problem there. Even if you're trying to be conciliatory or just, present some data, your whole body posture is one of attack.
It forces a performance. The content almost doesn't matter. It immediately reinforces the divide.
And it makes actually listening feel sort of secondary, doesn't it? You're performing for your own side.
So the shift suggested in the sources is, well, it's a change in emphasis. What if you just slightly reposition the speaking spot?
So you're not facing off against the enemy.
You're pulling attention inward. You're addressing the speaker, the whole room, everyone, not just targeting the other side.
Okay, but hang on. Isn't that conflict necessary? I mean, that's how scrutiny works, right? If you make it all too cozy, don't you lose that sharp edge?
That's a fair point.
Yeah.
And the goal isn't to get rid of conflict. It's to make deliberation the default mode, instead of combat being the default. When the physical cues tell you to fight, you fight. But when they subtly force you to acknowledge the whole room is your audience, it changes the dynamic.
So you're less likely to posture and more likely to actually try and persuade. It shifts the cognitive relationship.
Exactly. It makes listening feel a bit more natural than just performing.
Okay, so if the posture is aggressive, let's talk about the seating, the actual geography of the room.
Right now, it's all sorted by party and then by seniority. It's a structure built for party management.
And for you listening, when we say seniority, we're really talking about the front benches. That's the government ministers and their opposition counterparts, and then the back benchers, everyone else.
And that layout makes the visual story 100% about party versus party.
Which means loyalty to your party trumps loyalty to your locality, to your region. The person sitting next to you is your teammate, even if you represent totally different parts of the country.
Exactly. So the sources ask this really interesting question. What if the main principle for seating was constituency? What if you sat MPs by geographical region?
I can just hear the political scientists listening to this, scoffing. I mean, politics doesn't just dissolve because you move the chairs, right? They'd just form their own little party clumps anyway.
Oh, of course they would. Party discipline is a powerful force. But think about the subtle effect here.
Go on.
If you are sitting next to someone from the other party, but you both represent, say, towns on the same coastline that are facing the same erosion problem.
Ah, that shared local pressure starts to complicate things.
It complicates pure party loyalty in those specific crucial moments.
So the visual story in the room actually changes. You're not just seeing Team A versus Team B, you start seeing a map of the country.
Yes. That visual intrusion of geography forces local reality into the room. It creates a natural cross-bench connection based on place.
It reintroduces a bit of complexity into a very binary system. I like that.
And that feels really healthy for representation, doesn't it?
It does. Now let's talk about the most imposing part of the room, the front benches.
Their physical dominance is just immense. They're closer to the action, they're more visible, more audible.
And their contributions are the ones that get clipped for the news. It reinforces this whole hierarchy of who matters.
And if you're a backbencher, sitting further away, your chance to contribute feels, well, it feels diminished by the layout itself.
But wait, don't you need visible leadership for accountability? If the leaders just sort of melt into the crowd, how do we hold them responsible?
That's a really important point.
Yeah.
And the sources aren't saying abolish the front bench. They're saying mitigate the hierarchy.
So dial back the theatricality of it.
Exactly. The idea isn't to hide the leaders, it's to integrate them. Move from these opposing trenches to something with less physical separation from everyone else.
Make the front bench look less like an exclusive elevated stage.
Precisely. You're challenging the idea that leadership is this separate performance that happens to the room.
And making it feel like a contribution that's part of the room.
Right. And for a backbencher, that's huge. It makes contributing feel less like you're interrupting a show and more like you're a part of the actual work.
Okay, but before we go any further with this, moving a single chair, we have to address a critical reality: accessibility.
Yes. This has to be the foundation for this whole exercise. It is non-negotiable.
Because the current historical setup is already failing. Members with mobility needs or hearing differences.
Any adjustment has to drastically improve those conditions. It can't be an afterthought. If the whole point is to improve debate, you have to ensure every voice can participate equally.
It completely reframes the whole thing, doesn't it? It stops being about aesthetics and becomes about a modern, functioning workplace.
You have to treat the chamber as a working environment, not just a stage set. Accessibility has to be baked into the design logic from the very beginning.
Which brings us back to the power of these subtle changes. There's always a temptation to think that only huge, dramatic events can change anything.
And this analysis pushes back on that so well. Behavior changes because the cues change consistently.
So if the cue for speaking becomes less confrontational, the tone starts to adjust. If the seating reminds you of regional pressures, your perspective broadens a little.
You're lowering the activation energy required for cross-party cooperation.
You're not getting rid of conflict, which is vital, but you're making collaboration less awkward.
Less like a dramatic, treasonous act to agree with someone on the other side.
You're just normalizing complexity over combat.
Exactly.
And for you listening, this whole conversation isn't just a fun thought experiment. It has real, immediate urgency. Right now.
Because the Palace of Westminster is facing a massive restoration project. Temporary chambers have already been planned and modeled.
The idea of Parliament sitting somewhere else isn't hypothetical anymore. It's a logistical reality that's coming up.
So the urgent question isn't, can we afford a new room?
The question is, if we have to move, what do we want that new or restored space to do to the people in it?
Because if we don't answer that, if we don't figure out the behavioral outcomes we want, we risk just recreating the exact same confrontational cues in a new shiny room.
Which would be such a monumental missed opportunity, all that time and money just to reinforce the status quo.
And that leads to this final powerful realization from the research. For so long, the chamber has been treated as if it's neutral, as if behavior just happens in the space, not because of it.
As if the architecture is just a container for the argument, rather than being part of the argument itself.
But once you see it, you can't unsee it. The room is not neutral. The layout, the sight lines, it is an active political force.
That is a powerful way to put it. Okay, so to recap this deep dive for everyone, radical redesign isn't the only way.
We can recalibrate behavior with subtle, persistent changes.
Shifting the speaking position to address the whole room, not just the opposition.
Reforming the seating to bring constituency and regional pressures into the conversation.
And softening the physical dominance of the front benches to make leadership feel more integrated.
It's a fundamental rethink of how space influences politics. You don't need a crisis to change the way things feel. Sometimes you just need to change the room.
Which leaves us with our final provocative thought for you to take away. Given that we know the room isn't neutral, if Parliament ever did move, even temporarily,
what specific behaviors would a truly modern parliamentary space be designed to actively encourage? Forget just seating people. What interaction would you build the room to prompt, and how?
Something to mull over until our next deep dive.